How's it going? And welcome to the Music Production Podcast. This is your host, Brian Funk. I want to tell you about my Ableton Live pack called One Knob FX. It allows you to quickly and easily add some cool effects to your sounds with just the turn of a single knob. Do you have a synth like this that needs a little extra life? Just grab a One Knob FX, turn the knob, and get something like this. Or make an ordinary beat sound like it's coming off an old tape machine. A simple pluck sound instantly becomes something magical. One Knob FX Ableton Live Pack has a complex variety of FX presets, all with a simple one knob control. You can learn more at my site, brianfunk.com. And if you're a member of my music production club, where you get my latest stuff every time it's released, as well as a huge collection of other great music production tools, you can get One Knob FX with your membership during the month of August 2022. Go to brianfunk.com/MPC to learn more. Enjoy the show. Hello, and thank you for listening to the Music Production Podcast. My name is Brian Funk, and this is a show about all things making music. And today, I have Rob from Waxadisc here to talk to us about making music. He makes music as RobJamWeb, and he does disco house, new disco. He's also teaching and sharing his wisdom that he's gathered over the years with people on his YouTube and his Instagram. And we linked up through those channels, got to see a lot of his work, and he's doing plenty of cool stuff that I think will help lots of people in their music creation. So, Rob, welcome to the show, sir.
Hello, Brian. How are you? All right?
Excellent, excellent. How are you today?
Yeah, all good, thank you.
Good.
Nice and hot here in the UK. Extremely. We've got a heat wave at the moment, so it's very hot.
Yeah, we're getting a nice warm day today here in New York as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm good to be here. So looking forward to talking about whichever avenue we go down.
Yeah.
Because there's plenty to choose from.
Right.
So go for it.
Well, you've been at this for a little while, right? Making music and now sharing this and teaching. Do you mind giving us your short history of how you got involved in everything and
where
that brings you to?
Yeah, 30 years ago, so 1993, almost, so nearly 30 years ago, I left school and I went to work in a record shop in my local city, and it was called BPM Records in Derby. And it was an independent dance shop that specialized in house music and hip hop and etc., independent music. And I worked there, and then within weeks of working there, I met a couple of promoters from nightclubs and stuff, and I was just 16, and I started going to their events and working for them and doing the lights. And then before you know it, I was a DJ at the club and spent the whole of the 90s doing DJing tours all around England, and for a brand called Progress, which was one of the super clubs of the UK in the 90s. And then did all that, and then obviously from that, it generates into getting a bit of studio equipment, and I got my first Akai sampler in 95 and an Atari ST, and just started weaving track. Well, before that I had a 4-track and a Casio SK5 sampler, so it began there on tape, 4-track taping and looping and really lo-fi stuff before the term existed, and then moving into digital stuff. And then by the end of the 90s it was Cakewalk and Windows PC. And I started producing records, producing lots of tracks, and none of them were, it was all building up to something. And then I fell fortune in 99, and I had a huge hit record here in the UK and in Europe, called Everybody as the Boy Wonder. Now the name's a long joke, but basically the record sampled Madonna's Papa Don't Preach Strings. And it became a number 7 hit in the UK. In the national pop charts, and from there into the 2000s, I did lots more work on the trance scene and the harder house scene, and then I went back to the disco stuff by the 2000s, took a break, and then through the last decade or so, I've been teaching people. I've gone off and done a music production degree, and I've become a school teacher in the day, working with kids and stuff. But production wise, I do the YouTube channel And so, yeah, and been releasing Disco House since 2012 on a regular basis as RobJamWeb. So, yeah, that's where I'm at the moment.
Very nice.
So it's been a long ride, very bumpy, lots of breaks in between, children come along and things like that. But my kids are practically grown up now. So I'm finding more time to do this again without having to, worry about what they're doing. They're doing their own thing now, so yeah.
Right. Yeah. Life has
But
a way of creeping in.
That's right.
What do you teach the school children?
I'm more of I was doing music. I was doing music with alternative provision kids, which was basically like children that can't focus in the mainstream. So,
right.
Naughty kids, so to speak. But now I deal with behavior and stuff. So I don't work actually in the classroom as such anymore. I'm working with kids that have got behavior issues and stuff. Right. But I initially did my degree. I did a music production and popular music popular music with music production degree, technology. And my initial idea was to get a postgraduate and become a school teacher in music. But I decided against it. After working in a school for a year as a support staff, I realized that the mainstream music education package is it's not what I would like it to be. Mainstream education here in the UK particularly, the music side of things is very, very lacking in any kind of substance, any kind of relevance to today. It's it's very much still dated. So I decided not to do that. But yeah, teaching. So that's why I set my own thing up with YouTube and doing videos on there from about 10 years ago now, just as a bit of fun. And it just gradually built. And I still put videos out today, but not as regular as I should. But when I do it, I do enjoy doing it. And it's great when you get feedback, as you know yourself, and somebody you've never met, somebody you'll never meet, leaves a comment and says, "Oh my God, is that how you do it? Thank you." Or that's the reward is that in itself, more than the monetary side of it, is when you've helped somebody on the other side of the planet. That for me is a good thing to do, because you passed on something that I've learned from somewhere, and just passing the knowledge on, isn't it? You just the circle of music, you pass it on, it goes round and on it goes, really, I suppose. So yeah, that's where I'm at. That's a lot. There's a lot to take in there, but yeah, I'm sure I've missed something out, but
No, that's cool. I noticed that about a lot of your videos. It seems like quite a lot of positive feedback coming from people, and
I've got about 9,500 followers. I mean, over 10 years, that's not a lot, because as I say, I do this part-time. Although I'd love to do it a lot more, but it's just that I get so many different. I've got so many different things to do. I'm DJing, or I'm producing, or I'm making a course, or I'm teaching somebody online, or or I'm live jamming with all this stuff here. There's always something to be busy with. So I would love to be able to do more YouTube. But the people that I do teach on YouTube, or the people that are regulars of mine, they get a lot out of it. Yeah, they're quite supportive. It's quite a good. The disco community is quite close knit anyway. There's not a lot of negativity in it, whereas some of the other genres, with all due respect, there's a lot of angst in a lot of them, isn't there, when it comes to producers and stuff. There can be a lot of rivalries and stuff, but in disco there doesn't seem to be any, really, especially in the UK. There's a lot of, everyone's very supportive, DJs and stuff, that I know, and that people that I work with over here. Like, I've got records out on Midnight Riot, which is a big disco label in the UK. And all those guys are dead supportive. And, I went to the disco festival last week, the Woodlands Disco Festival, which was in Nottingham. And Jocelyn Brown was on stage performing live, and there was Dimitri from Paris was there. There was a lot of big acts. And the whole atmosphere was just so, uplifting and really joyful. So, yeah, that's what disco crowd are like, whether you're a producer or a dancer or a DJ. It's very supportive.
Yeah, it seemed like you were kind of hitting a specific thing that people were looking for with like a lot of that music, that they're like, I saw the comment over and over, that's exactly what I was looking for. I finally found it, type of thing.
Yeah, it's a lot of the boogie stuff that I tend to focus on. The early 80s sound is my kind of thing, early 80s to mid 80s. And I suppose that it's like, I remember that some of those records, a lot of those records when I was a kid, and growing up in the 80s, when not that it was aware of it at the time, it was more of like a subconscious thing. This music, the first music that's fed into your head, kind of, I can't think of the word to describe it, but you kind of like, do you understand what I mean? You know, like from childhood, you'll hear a song from childhood and it will resonate
your
with you.
cells or something as they're
growing.
Yeah,
definitely. I think that's probably why I like disco, because I was born in 1976. So my first 2 or 3 years of life, maybe I heard all these things on the radio. And,
everywhere.
It's there. It's probably just that, really. But that sound that I produce and that I teach is that early 80s boogie. So things like the Lindrum and the Oberheim DMX drum machines are quite prevalent. Lead lines, boogie
Great
basses,
sounds.
all that sort of thing. Like Breakbot, you heard of him? French producer. Those guys, that's the kind of sound that I try to emulate for people. Because people think it's quite difficult, and it's not difficult. It's the way that it comes across. Like you could put down a synth bass, a little pad with a sweep in it, and a couple of stabs and some delayed claps on an Oberheim, and you've got an instant boogie track. There's not a lot to it, but it just sounds busy. That's the secret to it, is to make something sound busy when it's not. And if you listen to a lot of real, genuine early 80s records of the boogie era, they're so simple. When you take away the vocal, there's literally nothing going on under there, but it's such a busy sound, but it's not busy. Probably 2 synths and a guitar, and a drum machine. And that's what I love. I just love all that sound, that whole post-disco era, when everything went from live to synths and drum machines, 82, 83, when drum machines really started to, get rid of drummers, and that kind of era. Definitely by 84, drum machines were king for a while, but I love that transition from 82 to 84, where there's a lot of synths were being used and a lot more drum machines were being used.
Drum machines
whereas
never
disco
miss a practice.
Pardon?
Drum machines never miss a practice.
No, exactly. And whereas disco music from 76, 77, 78 was all live, most live players and stuff, which I love that stuff, obviously. But the synth side of things is more my game. Yeah.
Yeah, those are a lot of cool sounds, and I liked some of those videos you have where you do show the simplicity of it, where it's like, here's the pad, here's the beat, here's the bass line, and good to go.
Definitely.
Cool.
I think that's what you have to do on YouTube. You can get a lot of videos that just drag out. I mean, what I don't tend not to do with my videos is be like a gimmicky kind of presenter, which is great. That's just not me. Where they come on and they'll do a sketch before they do a video, and then they'll they edit the video really cool to make it look like a kind of a comedy sort of sketch and that. Whereas I'm like, they'll just fill it with jokes. I'm like, let's just get to the point, and this is how you do it. I'm very straight talking, and it's and just get it straight out. Right, we're going to start with a beat, and then we're going to start with then we'll get the bass line down, and then I'll work the chords out, and then I'll tell people how to play the chord, and just keep it simple, so that people, because I'm trying to sell a course at the end of the day, so what I try to achieve from my free videos is to people to jump onto the next level and buy a course from me. So if they get a good vibe on the free video, they know what they're going to get in the other videos. You see, when they purchase a course from me, or they come on the mentoring course that I do, they know that they're going to get everything explained to them in an easy way. That's the problem. A lot of people think that music is a dark art, or some some people think it's really difficult, and it's not. It's just how you approach things, and and some people will listen to a song and go, there's loads of instruments in there, and when you've been producing for a long time, you can hear all of the instruments, can't you? You go, well, there's brass, there's strings, guitar. And then you break it down for someone, and then when they get that wow moment, like, oh my God, is that all it is? Is that there's only 6 instruments? And you go, yeah, that's it. And then when you show someone how to do that, which I've done for a client recently, it was like an amazing wow moment for him. And for me, it was just total satisfaction for breaking something down what he thought was complicated, and I gave him the passage to understand how to break a song down and write something for himself that he would have otherwise thought impossible.
Yeah, well, that's a real gift.
It's just something I've took for a long time to learn. I mean, I look at my very, very first YouTube videos from 10 years ago, and I'm very formal. I'm very, very like, hi, this is Rob and welcome. I'm very, very scared of the mic, whereas now it's like, hey guys, this is Rob, and I'm dead relaxed now. But it took a long time to get it right, but yeah, I still enjoy making YouTube videos. I mean, I'm going to make one later on this evening, but I still enjoy doing that kind of thing, So yeah.
You're right, though. It's a lot of different hats, a lot of different things to do. I was telling you before we started, sometimes I get the feeling I just talk about making music.
Yeah.
It's like, when do I get a chance to finally do it? When those times come, though, I think, you got to take a break and just get into it, spend some time doing it.
Absolutely. I mean, I bought this the other week, a Behringer 303, the TD3 replica.
I've heard good things about that.
It is really good. I've only put it on once. I've synced it to the Korg Volcas that I've got, but again, cool. I plugged it in once, put the Korg, the reverb pedal through it, but again, I've not done anything for I've had it for 3 weeks and I've still not used it, just need to spend an hour and just noodle and play away. Teaching gets in the way, and then this and that, but I need to make more time for making my own music, without a doubt, because that's where my heart truly lies.
Right.
But yeah.
Well, that fuels everything else too. When you get the time to do that, you get refreshed on it. It gives you more content for YouTube. It gives you ideas for lessons with your students. So it's good to dip your toes in there every once in a while.
Oh, the amount of times that I've started a track myself on Ableton, and then realized that I could make a tutorial out of this, a video, and then so I end up scrapping it as a track for myself and make most of my videos on YouTube of showing you how to make this or that are tracks that I've not pursued for my own artist release, So I could have had probably about 5 albums out by now, but I've given them all away as tutorials.
That dang YouTube.
So, yeah.
Yeah, one thing I really liked about your music and your production is the bass.
Okay.
There's a lot of really cool stuff. Disco has such incredible bass playing, and you have a really great way of capturing the bass player.
Okay.
Some of the things a bass player does with the length of the notes they play and the octaves and the movements to drive the song and to help it groove. I think you're able to really carry over well in your music electronically.
That comes from, I suppose that comes from DJing and listening to a lot of records, disco wise, for example. I've studied a lot of people like Patrick Adams and Nile Rodgers, for example, or Chic. I've studied a lot of records, and I get a lot of. I mean, the plugins that I use for bass is the Contact Native Instruments Funk Bass, and there's the one built into Ableton, which is just the normal open bass that you get in the Ableton packs. They're the only ones that I use, really. But there's also one on the Z3TA synth, which is a VST, and it's got called the Fred Falk bass, and it's a French producer who used that, and Alan Brakes, who used the bass line for like the Daft Punk kind of sound. It's quite a really rubbery sort of bass, and they're my 3 favorite sort of bass lines. But yeah, I always kind of tend to use those plugins and try and capture when I'm playing a bass line, I'll try and capture some of the notes. I'll make sure the velocity is high, so it gets the twang, it goes down, when they boom, boom, bang, like that. Try and capture the real essence of a bass player, because you can get bass lines that are static, and it can become a bit boring, really. So you need to kind of add that live element is important, and we can do that now. Whereas a long time ago it was difficult to get a live element. With plugins now, they're so real, they're better than the real instrument off some of the times, aren't they? You can really capture the tonalities and everything of saxophones now or whatever. So I've always tried to capture as much organic playing and feel in a track as I possibly can.
Are you primarily playing that on keyboard? Or
Yeah.
drawing it
I've not picked a guitar up in years. And I'm left-handed anyway, so I always every time I do pick a guitar up, I always pick a right-handed guitar up upside down. So no, I'm no good at that. I will always keyboard play it, without a doubt. But I tell you what I can't do is I can't do finger drumming on pads. But I can do it on a keyboard. So if I set a load of sounds up on a drum, I can.
Right.
I'm really good with finger drumming, but on an Ableton Push, for example, which I've got over there, which is again gathering dust, I just can't do it. But I can't even play on Ableton Push. You know, you can do all the chords, and I tried it when I first got the Push years ago, and I found it really odd to play pads for chords or riffs, and it was very, very unusual to me because I'm self-taught on piano, you see, for 20 plus years, and I've still never made that leap to try and do that. And it probably would create something really interesting, but it just doesn't. The thought of it daunts on it bothers me to think I could play, it's covered in dust, but to play chords on here would be alien to me. It's just really odd. So stick to the keyboard, me.
Well, that's you kind of dancing around an important point that I don't know that people realize is that all our MIDI controllers, our Push or whatever we're using, if it's like some sort of MPC, they're instruments that you have to learn to play, just like you have to learn how to play the keyboard. And
absolutely,
I'm not a keyboard player, so when Push came along for me, I was very excited because of the way it's laid out. It looks like strings on a guitar, because the rows, every row of note is a fourth, which is very similar to what you see on guitar. So the shapes were similar. So I say, I see. There's my C chord, just like on guitar, and I'm able to spot it. Whereas
where you hold a guitar,
on the keyboard, I have to really think about it. Put my fingers down.
That's the opposite. We're a total opposite of that because, just press pads, even though it's the same kind of thing. It's not arranged like sets of key, not a set of keyboards. So, each to their own. But like you say, if I was to spend a week or two on the Push, I use it for launching. I'll have a session view, and I'll launch samples if I'm doing a live set. I'm totally fine with that. I can completely run it then. But in terms of playing on it, no chance. No, unless it's just pressing the odd couple of notes with a delay on it. But that's it.
Even the session view, launching scenes, there's a bit of an art to that too, because if you're going to launch a clip, you have to start it before the beat, which is kind of counterintuitive. As everything we do as musicians, we got to do it right on time. So
exactly.
You might be playing your keyboard in time like a normal instrument, and then you go to the session view to launch something. You got to remember, I got to come early for this.
That's
like
when you record, when you press the launch the record button on session view, you've got some beats playing on audio, and then you want to record a MIDI riff in. Thank heavens for record quantize, and that when I press that, and then it automatically quantizes whilst I'm playing, because there's nothing worse than hitting a bum note when you're doing a live jam, and it automatically drags it into place. But you've got to be absolutely on point pretty much all the time. So it's no different to playing with a live band, is it? In the sense it's harder. The irony is it's harder to play because when you're playing with a live band, I've played in several live bands, keyboards over the years, and you can be loose. You can be that little bit, because there were funk bands I was working with. You could be a lot more looser with them. But if you're doing a live set on Push, you've got to be really accurate, haven't you? Digital accuracy, unless you're doing some kind of freestyle weirdness. But
the band will
dance music.
The band sways with you a little bit, so if you drag a little, the music will kind of, and it all works together. But the computer's just charging ahead.
Exactly. There's no beat in that system. But I'm sure I could, if I spent a month or two with the Push, just the Push, I could come up with some really interesting stuff that I would never do on keyboards.
Right.
So but it's like you say, it's time. Like you say, it's like learning to ride a bike all over again, isn't it? It's kind of, it's something that I just use to launch slips with. Really, that's it.
Yeah,
I'm
I get
currently
it.
I'm currently in the middle of trying to not sync it, but use it with a DJ set on 2 turntables and launch stuff on the push into the DJ set. But again, time.
Yeah.
It's just finding the time for this stuff.
Yeah, that was something I realized pretty immediately when I was trying to start playing live using MIDI controllers and Ableton, thinking you just kind of set it up and okay, here we go. But it's an instrument. It's learning an instrument, and you also have to build the instrument.
Yeah, of course.
So you got to figure that all out. What's going to be in your session? What are the buttons going to do? What are your MIDI mappings going to be?
Gosh, yeah, I've done that. I mean, I did a live performance a few years ago where it was like a techno sort of set, and I set up the system so that I had an instrument rack, and within that instrument rack, I had on a MIDI channel, I had 5 VSTs within that one, and then I had to manually map it so that I could press a keyboard, a button on my, say for example, you would press a button and then it would glide over to the next synth. So you've got 4 VSTs and you wanted to use one for bass line, and then you would want to use another lead line for a different track. So it's basically, like you say, you've got to program all this stuff in and plan it and get it all in order. And it's very complicated, and you've got to remember all that as well. Yeah. And if you're doing a live performance, and you're on your own, you've got to be, everything, haven't you? You've got to be the drummer and the bass player and the it's hard work. People think, oh, he's just pressing buttons. No, you're not. It's a guitarist is just a guitarist. They've mastered the art of that. Whereas you've got all of this machinery around you. It's not easy at all, is it? As it's not. People just think that electronic musicians are just charlatans, and they're not. A lot of it is really hard work.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously degrees, right? You can just be launching a single clip and that's your whole song, or just playing arrangement view straight through and it's just playing your whole set. But yeah, like you said, like there's so much you can decide to take on. It's an interesting line to draw, actually. Do you find, to give you an example, right? Like when I first started playing live with the computer, and I was playing still with like all my rock band peers. So I'm playing like with bands, and I show up with a laptop and a bunch of buttons. I felt a lot of pressure to prove that I was doing something. So when I listen back to those recordings, I'm doing all kinds of stuff, making all kinds of weird noise. That's actually taking away from the music a little, but it's to prove.
Showboating.
Well, it was really like my insecurities about it coming through. As I got more comfortable with it, I would do less.
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm trying to ask you is, where do you like draw the line where it's either, because you could just turn on like an iPod and just stand there and dance around on one level, or you can start with a blank session and record everything from scratch, which is the total extreme. Where do you kind of find yourself sitting on that continuum?
In terms of when people perform live, you mean?
Right. Where do you feel comfortable?
I'd be comfortable myself with just having a pre-programmed set, but having certain parts. My live set was all my drums would be in order, and they would be triggered so that they could be. They would follow on. When you do the follow on thing in Ableton,
follow actions.
So I'd have all the drums all set out in different varieties, but I would do things like the bass and things like that. I would have them all pre-done. I think if your background stuff's pre-done, I think you would be best to do live riffs, live pianos, live keys, that sort of thing. As long as it's, you're not just stood there, like you say, you're not just stood there pressing buttons and, you've launching stuff that you've pre-programmed it and, like it's almost like miming, isn't it? I suppose, if you was to do that in a sense. But I think if you've got 50-50 really, if you've got a lot of stuff preset ready to go, and then a lot of it's live jamming, live improvisation, that's where I'm comfortable with. That's what I'm happy with. for example, in the Korg Volca drums, I would have 8 preset drum machine loops pressed, programmed, ready to be launched, and I'd leave that running. Whereas on top of here, I would do some live noodling, that kind of thing. So I'm not too keen on just all pre-recorded and just triggering stuff. I think that's quite. Does that answer the question? Is that where we're going with it?
Yeah.
Because I was getting a bit lost there, but I think you would definitely have to have an element of a bit of both, really, because but then what do you do when the machine breaks down? Do you there's been times when the computer's lagged and that sort of thing, so then you have to have a backup, don't you? So the backup is live, a quick live jam. I'd put a Rhodes on or something and till everything's booted back up again, I suppose. But yeah, you have to have a bit of everything in a set, pre-done live noodling, and then improvisation on top, and pure chance as well. There's times when I've pressed the wrong button, the wrong launch pad, and something new's happened. What do you call it? A lucky accident or whatever they call it. Or but then there's times when you press something and you've got a loop playing in E minor, and then you've launched something and it's come up as B major 7 or something. I don't know, something that doesn't work, and then it all goes pear-shaped, doesn't it? But yeah, as long as you've got a bit of everything, I think it's fine. So yeah,
sometimes some of those buttons are real close together. They're easy to
that's it, especially on the Akai APC Mini. They're really tiny. I had one of those once. I couldn't get used to that. And then you've got to know, the thing is with Ableton, the beauty of Ableton Push is that all the colors light the pads up the same as the screen.
Yes.
Whereas on an APC, it doesn't. They're all just orange or yellow when it's which one's on and which one's off, and you kind of forget. But with the
you recognize Ableton, the shapes on your pads after a while.
Exactly, yeah. But yeah, definitely. So yeah, there's all sorts of different kind of ways of doing things and not doing things, really, isn't there? This is the beauty of it now. We're at a stage now where there is so much stuff available. There is no, 30 years ago, it was a bass guitarist, singer, and a drummer, and a keyboard player if you were lucky. But now there's so much available. You've got bands, you've got rock bands that have electronics on stage. You have metal bands that incorporate drum and bass, and there's all sorts of a wide range of stuff now. That there's the rules are very out the window now. I think they've got a lot. I think the beauty of electronic music and the flexibility of it has created so much more interesting musical landscapes now, because you're hybriding rock with dance, or you're hybriding hip hop with drum and bass, or I don't know, whatever. It's kind of there's a lot of good stuff coming out that's wouldn't have been possible without Ableton and that kind of thing. I think so anyway.
Yeah, I totally agree, because now there's kind of okay, so say you're playing by yourself, and when I play live, I have a push, APC 40, a launch pad, a microphone, and usually the Teenage Engineering OP1.
Right, yeah.
Fits nicely on a table.
Yeah.
But within that, you might have the same exact setup, but the way I've mapped my stuff is totally just what I do, and someone else comes along and they use it completely differently. I use the APC 40 for launching clips, and push is my keyboard. So I don't even do, I try not to switch pages on anything, because, the heat of the moment, you're playing and you're on the wrong menu or something, and you turn the knob, oh no, that's the wrong one. You switch back, and then you changing things, you don't remember what. It's so easy to get lost that way.
Absolutely.
Now that person can be then put into all kinds of other ensembles with other musicians. There's just such an infinite open-ended possibilities. It's like it's a very modular thing, not as modular synthesis, but just how you get all your little pieces, and then with your band you get all your little pieces, and you can combine really interesting gatherings of musicians that way.
Absolutely. That's like you say, with the use of your equipment. If I was to use your equipment, I'd totally do it completely different,
Yeah.
with what you've done. And same with what I've got here. You'd do something different. And that's a good thing. Whereas before, I don't know, 50 years ago, we'd just be both guitarists,
Right.
and we would, you know what I mean? We'd both be doing the same riffs, I suppose,
You have a
or the,
Strat and I have a Gibson,
yeah,
and
exactly. And it'd be
that.
you do rhythm, you do lead, and off we
Right.
go. And not to say that anything great comes out of that, but
Yeah.
that we wouldn't have known any different at the time. But now we could do all this electronic stuff and bring a guitarist in,
Hmm.
and loop. Then there's all that loop sort of playing as well, which is, I love watching that. I love watching people that do loop pedals and how they build a track
Right.
like that, with the
Yeah.
guitar, and then they hit it with the foot and record a rhythm, and then they record a lead and an echo. And I like watching that sort of thing. That impresses me.
I do
But as I
too.
say,
And that's something though that I just haven't really found a way to incorporate into what I do that well,
yeah,
where I feel like it actually matters.
yeah,
I might build like the beginning of a track from
yeah,
nothing, but after that, I feel like, what, then I'm going to start the verse, then I'm going to rebuild the chorus. And now when it's
yeah,
the next song, after a while, I feel like now it's a gimmick.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
felt the same way about guitar, actually, which is funny to me because there's like, if I'm feeling insecure about how I'm being perceived as a musician, especially in like a rock show,
yeah,
you
absolutely.
think, bring my guitar, I'll show them. I still play an instrument.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I felt like when I did that, I was almost doing karaoke, but instead of singing, playing
Oh,
guitar.
okay.
And
Yeah,
it felt kind of
bit of a
less
novelty.
lifeless and novelty. And it was just to kind of, it wasn't for the music and it didn't make the performance better. I just couldn't
Hmm.
figure out a good way to use guitar. So I never really did.
Right.
And I,
Yeah.
it's so funny
Like
how
I
it
say,
changes.
it's a bit of a novelty act in a way, isn't it? It's kind of, there's a lot of people that discuss things about, like if you get um the launch pad or the DJ launch pads that you get on Mixer Serato and things like that. Um, they do all these cutting ups of tracks and they do it really fast, and it's like DMC style DJ, with the Scratch DJ Championship sort of thing.
Hmm.
There's a lot of that, which I love watching for 2 or 3 minutes, but after 2 or 3 minutes, it's like ninjas, they're just so super fast. And it's like, could you do that for an hour, in a whole set? Or, and it's kind of, as good as it is and as talented and as skilled as it is, for a whole hour, it would just get a bit repetitive, wouldn't it? You have to have a variety of things
Hmm.
to make your set interesting. You have to have your breakdowns and your pads or your atmospheric bits, and then your build ups and that kind of thing, really. But then at the same time, you've got a lot of people that are impatient now. We've become more impatient. So 50 years ago, for example, you'd get a band playing live, like Led Zeppelin, for example, and they do a half an hour version of one song, you know.
Right.
Whereas now, can you imagine somebody doing that
Yeah.
on stage? We've got all this equipment, but could somebody do a 30-minute, maybe Aphex Twin could, but somebody do a 30-minute version of a track, electronically, and take it
Right.
into lots of different areas, you know. Um, that's what that's kind of, it's kind of, we are limited, but we're also not limited as well. That's what I
Hmm.
find with music. So I kind of, when I teach people, I kind of stick to a very similar, strict sort of regime. Really, I kind of not overdo it with too many plugins and too many. I
Hmm.
kind of tend to use a lot of free plugins so that it doesn't cost them any extra money, or I tend to use a lot of the Ableton stock. Um, and keep it limited, because you can end up going down a rabbit hole
Yeah.
and doing too much. And we could spend an hour looking for a sound that might not exist. So it's kind of having, my clients will say to me, I want to make this sort of track by this guy, and I'll say, okay, I'll go away and listen to it, break it down, find the sounds for them, and build it back up like that. But yeah, I always tend to try and keep things simple, because, like you say,
Hmm.
we've got so much stuff, we could lose ourselves for too much and get nothing done.
Yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
that's yeah.
Well, in my early days of having a computer
Mm.
and getting a DAW, I spent so much time scouring, the underground of the internet, getting
Yeah.
every plugin, every DAW I could get my hands on, and
Yeah.
for months. And I got really good at figuring out how to crack software, where to find the good cracks, and made no music. And I had all these tools and I
Yeah.
had no idea what any of them did. I didn't know what to do with them. And I felt really paralyzed when I tried to make music. And it would
Yeah.
then perpetuate this feeling of like, well, maybe I just need this other thing that I just found on the internet that looks
Yeah.
pretty cool. Finally, I just
This.
got rid of all that and just learned what was inside of Live. Because I'm
Yeah.
like, what business do I have getting all this other stuff when I don't even know all this stuff that's already in this program?
Yeah. I mean, I can remember getting a copy of Live very early on. It must have been Ableton 1 or 2. And someone gave it me, and I just, what is this? The session view and all that. I was like, this is rubbish. I don't want this, because all through the 2000s, I used Cakewalk, Sonar, and Reason. When Reason came out, I used that at Reason 3 or something, and I learned how to use those two for a number of years, and then Ableton gradually just started creeping up, and I think it must have been 6 or 7 I started really taking it seriously. I think what it was the screen was dead small. The editing screen's a lot smaller than Cakewalk was, so it took me a while to really get into it. But when I started getting into it and I started really digging deep into Ableton, I was like, wow, this is, where have you been all my life?
Yeah.
This is great. It really was. And it was, then I realized you could DJ on it as well, when I learned how to DJ on it. And it was so flexible, so expandable. It was great. So, but yeah, that's the software that I've used for 13 years now. I think since late 2000s I started using Ableton. But yeah, I've tried. When I went to university, I did Pro Tools and Logic, but I've tried to use those. Not tried to, I did do, but just Ableton is just so easy to use. I think it's just, I don't know, it just beats all the other ones for me. I still use Cakewalk sometimes because it's free now. That is for Windows users, and it's really. Have you looked at it? Have you ever looked at the Cakewalk by BandLab?
Not
No.
really. No.
No,
Just I never used it. Just
no,
saw it in videos.
it's really still, it's completely free now, and it's got loads of plugins and all. It's the whole studio package, and sometimes I go back to it just for nostalgia. But
yeah,
nothing can beat Ableton for me. Not now.
When I got my laptop, that would have been 2005. I got Pro Tools because that's all I'd ever heard of.
Yeah.
And Pro Tools came bundled with Reason and like Ableton 4, I think. And I remember opening, I at least understood what Reason was because it looked like equipment and I saw wires.
Yeah.
But when I opened Ableton, it looked like, Excel or something. And I didn't get what it was. I had no idea. I didn't understand it all. Never really opened it again. But when I started, once YouTube started picking up with tutorials, people, I was using probably Logic then, and everybody was talking about Ableton Live, and there was such a good community around it that I sort of got sucked in and just found it to be such a great songwriting tool. Where when you go into session view, you can record a little guitar part or a keyboard part and then build off of it and then see how it sounds if I switch to this other section and change things up differently. I loved that, and that just got me.
It was it's very good like that. Like you say, you can just knock a demo up very quickly, and then and all of the easy access effects like your delays and your reverbs and all that. It's so accessible. Like I say, it looks like a spreadsheet, doesn't it? It's not very flattering.
I appreciated the uniform look of all the devices. They have the same dial, the same faders, the same text, where when you open anything in Logic, it's like a whole new spaceship you got to learn how to drive.
Of course,
and it's cool looking. Like there's a lot of great stuff. And once you actually understand what all of the, like, I'm also talking before I understood how to use a compressor or what a ADSR envelope was. But to me, it was like every single thing I opened was a whole new spaceship interface. And Ableton was like, oh, there's that knob from the other device. It's the same thing. Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
Help me learn a lot.
There's so much to learn on Ableton. It's like just constant, isn't it? There's always something new. I've still not explored all of the, the plugins like the erosion and all those kind. I've still not even gone. I've done some bits with those things, but you forever just like the universe, isn't it? It just keeps going.
It is.
All
of this stuff is.
But yeah, I mean, some of the built-in sounds they've got, they're getting better. Especially I'm a bigger fan of Fender Rhodes and Wurlitzers and things.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got some really good ones in there now, that they keep adding over time. But yeah,
there was a relatively new electric piano pack that came out, and it's got just like every variation. Really nice.
I've not been on the website for a little while to have a look at some of the stuff that when I go to the available
11, possibly even 10, but
it's like I've not looked on the packs. I've downloaded most of the packs when I upgraded to 11. They've got some really nice strings on there. I like the strings that they've got. But yeah, there's so much stuff available. It's like on Reason as well. There's so many packs available with the subscription, and you just can't keep up, and then that's why I try and keep things simple with my tracks. I try and keep things very, very simple, but then at the same time you have to keep evolving and trying to look for new stuff because there's always something coming out. So it's a continuous carrot and donkey game, isn't it? You're forever just trying to catch the carrot all the time, and there's always something new around the corner. So yeah, that's probably one of the problems I face with music is, something will come out and you have to learn how to use that again. A new plugin will come out, like the Roland subscription package that I had, the Cloud. All of those came out, and then, I was learning how to use all of them and the Juno and the Jupiter. And not that it took a long time, but again, it's another synth, isn't it? It's another product you've got to get your head around
and learn exactly why is this one different. This one is able to do these fun things.
And then Reason upgraded when it went to the subscription, and it changed its interface, and they put loads more plugins in. They've got some really cool stuff in there, like the effect racks and stuff, the retro ones, and that. I love that. And all the what's it called? Not the grain. It's like a sampler they've got in there. I can't remember what it's called now off the top of my head. But wavetable thing. It's brilliant, just to explore and stuff. If I could make more ambient. I mean, I make ambient music as well when I'm not doing disco, just for pure pleasure. If I could ever get the chance to sit and do some long drawn out Brian Eno pads, I will do. Just to sit there. It's almost like meditation. I'll just sit there and just play 3 chords for an hour.
There's something about the act of making ambient music is very in the moment, present, and I find myself like turning a knob for 13 minutes to make one whole turn, but you just get to really hear the sound open up and change.
So I'll do that sometimes, even if I'm not, and that's when it doesn't, when I'm stuck for an idea for something dancey, something housey, disco, I'll just put on a Rhodes and I'll just drown it in reverb, and I'll just start messing about with put the foot pedal on and sustain it for ages, and then you find that I've not recorded it, and I'll just sit there and I'll save this preset, and then I've tweaked it and I'll save it for another day, and I've got so many files on my computer: ambient track 2, ambient track 3, ambient track disco ass 4, disco ass 5, and it's you've got so much stuff. If it was like real tapes, if we had all real master tapes, I'd have hundreds and hundreds in the room. That's the one good thing about digital music, isn't it? You don't have to have physical storage for all of your unfinished demos.
I would call it the good and bad thing, right? Because I think if it was tape, you wouldn't have that. You'd spend more time on those tracks. And
you'd do it, wouldn't it? Yeah, I suppose you finished it,
because tape is expensive. So
I suppose so. Yeah, absolutely.
So you'd be very limited, and then I think probably you would invest more into that. But when space is infinite, it's so easy to be like, save it for later.
Exactly.
Let's do it.
You're right. I think that's a good point. Actually, we become kind of selfish in a way, I suppose, because it's like, I'll finish that tomorrow. I'll do that tomorrow. I haven't got time for that now. And it's like you're denying yourself creativity because you got, like you say, you can just save it and put it aside, and then as your recent files list goes down and down, those tracks you started disappear off the recent open list, don't they? And then they end up in the vault. And I mean, I've got all my stuff going back to Ableton 8, I think, all my tracks that go back to that. And there's so many unfinished demos in there. It's unbelievable. It's tiny sketches and long tracks and unmixed tracks. And I'll never finish them, but I will never delete them,
right?
You know, just in case. But I don't go through them enough in order to go, oh, I'll finish that now, or I'll take that idea, because you're forever making something new, you know, or there's something, you know, something else that comes along. But it's just weird. I mean, like, I'll probably spend this year, I'll probably make, I've had 3 singles out this year already, and that's it. No, 4 singles I've had out this year. And I'll probably have another 3 out before the end of the year, and that will be it. Whereas really, I should have at least 20 out. I've got some guys in my scene that release regularly every fortnight. And I'd love to have that kind of discipline, I suppose. You know, that's another thing. That's another thing I lack, is discipline. I'm very, very bad with discipline, self-discipline with music.
Well,
I don't know about you. I mean, which you've decided, you know, this is coming out. Does it? It's
funny, because you know, you're don't forget, you're teaching, you're doing YouTube, so you're working a lot, and yeah, maybe I can say this to make myself feel better too, you know, because I feel I am pretty disciplined about showing up and getting to work and doing things, but there is also room for improvement where, you know, I work on sometimes like the easier things, like the most rewarding thing is making music, far and away, and it's also the hardest, you know. Like, to do this podcast, it's great. I love talking to you and all the people I get to talk to here. I learn a lot, but there's not a lot on the line. You know, when I'm making music, it's kind of like, all right, buddy, you know, what do you got? And that's a harder discipline to adhere to. But the more you do it, the easier it gets. So it's
absolutely,
it's such a mind game, really. You know, it's incredibly challenging mentally to do any of this stuff.
Absolutely. That's why with, you know, like with, let's say, self-discipline, I should rote myself in to do an hour every other day to do live stuff, and then spend an hour. But then when I do that, you rotor in that I'm gonna make that track tonight, I'm gonna finish the track. You might not be in the mood. You know, music, you have to be in the mood, don't you? You know, you can't. It's not like turn up to work and you're an accountant and you get on with the job. You have to feel it. You know, if you're not feeling it, then at midnight you might feel it just before you go to bed, and you're like, oh, I wish I had more time now to finish that. You know.
Well, I would argue that, I don't know, like work stuff, right? Like when I go to work, like I have to be at work at that time, and I have to start working, period, the end. It doesn't matter if I care or want to or anything. Tough. Just do it. Like, you're here and you're scheduled. Go. With music, you know, I think when I treat it more like work like that, when it's like, no, it's time to go. I don't care if you want to do it, just do it. And at least with the music stuff, after a few minutes, because you love it, you just get excited about it and you get into it.
Of course.
But I think because there's no, you know, I'm not going to get fired, you know.
Absolutely.
Maybe if I had people expecting, you know, and could fire me, I would work a little differently.
That's funny you should say that, 'cause that happened to me when I had a hit record in the 90s. I was signed to Mercury Records, which was owned by Universal. And up until that point, everything I did was fun in the bedroom. It was just pure studio home fun. And then I hit a lucky strike, and then I got a record deal, and then it was a 3-single deal. And after that, it became a business, and it was, right, we need another single now. We need it now in the bag. And I was only 23, and I was like, I haven't got, okay. So then I was under pressure, immense pressure, to make another hit record. And you can't produce hit records. You can't set out and go, I'm going to make a hit record. It doesn't happen, as we'd all be doing it, wouldn't we? It was just, it's one of those things. They were demanding a hit record because I'd had one and they wanted another. And I was like, okay, so we booked this studio in London. I don't know why we did, but we booked Olympic Studios in London, which is like, U2 were there the week before. It was ridiculous. And I had a vocalist come in and do this vocals for this track. And it was just pressure. And in the end, the whole thing just fell apart and I gave up. Well, basically what happened was I did a cover version of a Massive Attack song, Unfinished Sympathy. You familiar with that?
I'm not.
By Massive Attack. It was a huge song here in the 90s. And the problem with it was the publishing was the band owned half of it and the singer owned the other half. And I made a version of it, which kind of was a commercial version of their cool track, so to speak. And they didn't want it released. So then the whole project fell apart. Oh, no. And I just threw the towel and I said, I've had enough. And I went off and made a funk album with my mates. So I wanted to get back that fun element.
Yeah.
So that for me was the first and only time I've ever been under pressure in music and said, been with a gun to me and said, right, you've got to do this. And it was horrible. It was a horrible experience. And I would never go through that again. And you can understand, now today, youngsters that are on these major record labels, I would hate to be in that position because a lot of them can't even release their music until they've got 1 million TikTok followers. It's business, isn't it? Whereas now, when I say,
recently, artists coming out saying they tell me I got to be on TikTok more, and a lot of people coming out complaining about this. So this is not what I decided to do. I'm a musician.
And there's some artists that have got major label deals, but they can't release anything, not even a jam or a live jam with friends or whatever. It's quite sad, really. And they're signing into these deals. But yeah, like you say, the work element of the discipline, it comes back to that now. It's just I'm on my own terms, and that's how I want it to be forever. I don't want to be tied into some deal that, or some kind of, agreement. I've released records on various labels over the years, and lost money, made money. It's not about that. Money is the bonus for it. Obviously we need to make money, but these days I release a track and just let it go with the wind, and if it does all right, it does okay. If it doesn't, it doesn't matter. We can make another one. It didn't cost much to put out. So, in terms of discipline, like you say, it's not like we're going to get fired or anything, but I got fired from that. Well, not fired, but the deal got broke down and we just terminated the contract, and we didn't do that any more than that with Universal, which was a blessing because after that I went to set my own vinyl label up anyway, released Disco House for a couple of years. Nice. Lost ridiculous amounts of money, but it was the pleasure of putting records out. I think the last record I did, I had pressed up 1,000 and only sold 300 of it, and I had 700 returned to me. I think it was around 2003, and at that point, everyone was going download. It was Napster, and it was not Napster. What was the other one? LimeWire.
Yeah.
And it was all of that. People were downloading and playing on CDs. So it was a bad time to release records, really, at that period. But yeah, I've lost money. I've made money. That's the nature of the beast, isn't it? But we don't do it for that. I'm still here now, 30 years later, still making records, still putting music out, still helping other people achieve their dreams of releasing songs. And that's why I do it, really, and the money is secondary. So, yeah. But like you say, it's the work ethic is, for myself, is very lazy. It's very slack. Whereas if I'm teaching somebody or I'm working, I'll meet you at 8:00, and let's get down to business. Definitely.
Yeah. It is sometimes nice to have someone to let down so that you actually show up.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. It's myself.
I play with a band, two of my buddies, and we play at a certain time every week usually. And a lot of times I'm tired. I worked. I don't want to. I gotta get this podcast out. I gotta do this. I gotta do that. But I gotta 5:00. We start, so I gotta be there. And then once you do it, you're going and you're in it, and you just get in the zone a bit. But if it was just me, there's many of those nights where I'd be like, yeah, you could take it easy, Brian. It's cool, relax.
Absolutely. And that's me every night, mostly. That's definitely. I've not got anyone kicking me from behind and saying, come on, and that's, I suppose that's like you say, it's like being a solo artist. You have that. kind of surfboard attitude, just chilled out, just it's just it's difficult to get disciplined when you're on your own, when you're solo, like say, but like if you've got a band, you're committed. Maybe I should get a band together. I don't know. Maybe I should, fine. But it's just, I think I've worked on my own for so long now. I would find it hard to work with somebody on a song, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I work with my clients all the time, but there's a difference. I'm driving the session, so to speak.
Right.
But in terms of playing live with somebody, I think I would. I suppose if they were a guitarist, that'd be different. I'd be jamming away with them on the piano. But production-wise, I don't think I could work with anybody solidly, like as two people in a room.
Yeah.
I could never do that. Not anymore.
I do
even though
enjoy
it makes
the
good stuff.
lack of the ability to not take responsibility for things. So like I don't have to worry about what the drums are playing. I just have to play with the drums.
Yeah.
So and because if you're making your own track, you got to figure out exactly what the drums are doing, why they're doing it, when they're doing it, and how they're doing it. And sometimes it's nice to just have your drummer play something and you say, all right, I'll work with that. I'll make that work instead of make something that will work with something I haven't even come up with yet.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, that's a good point. A good way of looking at it. But yeah, I'm too kind of set in my ways, I think, now. For that kind of thing. I would do a joint project, whereas I would start a track and then someone else can finish it, remotely, or I'm open to that kind of thing, but not two people in a room and jamming. It's no. But then that might be me cutting my nose off to spite my face, I suppose, and not allowing myself to grow more. Maybe I don't know.
Well, the beauty
I've
of
worked
that
over the
type
years
of thing
with
is
lots of people. It's been I've done a lot of good sessions with people. I've released rarest records with other people, and they've been good. But I suppose gradually over the years, and then lockdown happened. You just become more and more insular, I suppose.
You can, sure. That's very true. It's pretty crazy because you essentially had the dream come true, with the hit record and then the deal. And it's sometimes, I guess it's that old adage, right? Be careful what you wish for, or we think we want something sometimes until we see what it is. And or we want the one part of it, we don't.
Absolutely.
You got to understand you're taking a whole package of yin and the yang along with it. So sometimes.
No, I think I peaked too early with that. I mean, saying that, it was 6 years of failures before I made a hit record. I was in my studio every night, mostly, from the age of 16 to 23, just banging out tunes, trying as much as I could, buying equipment, selling equipment, replacing it with this, replacing it with that, and then computer upgrades over the years from a Mac, Atari ST up until Windows 98, and then, but I think at the time when I did that, I had less ability, but the huge desire, whereas now I've got more ability and less desire to be huge and popular, so to speak. I just enjoy doing what I do now, and if it gets an audience, that's a bonus. But yeah, I think at the time I wasn't very skilled in playing keys or anything. I was good at sampling and putting different sounds together, experimenting a lot with samples, and that's how that fell into place, really. But yeah, like you say, I had the deal and all of that, and performed on TV and all those kind of things, and was in all the magazines and everything. But yeah, it was a dream come true. But I wasn't prepared for the next phase, which was, right, you need another record, and they're on your back, and there's time and pressure, and I wasn't ready for that, and that's why it kind of fell apart, really.
You're kind of getting hired for a job that you actually never really did, if you think about it. Like, 'cause you worked a certain way, and now they're saying, all right, now you got to do what you just did, but in this way.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. definitely like that. It was a lot of,
You're a great painter with your brushes, but now you're gonna use your
use,
fingers or something.
yeah.
Right. So
That's exactly this. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, definitely. That's how they do it. And then when major record labels get involved anyway, things always go wrong, because most people that run a record label never made a record, you know. So yeah, they're businessmen at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So yeah, but it was all good fun, and it all was all a part of being young and great and fun. But now I make music totally for what I want to do, totally what I want to do, rather than what I feel I have to do. I've made ambient albums, I've made classical kind of movie soundtrack albums, I've done hip hop, funk, you name it. I put it out over the years.
Your record label would have killed you.
Exactly. But yeah, I've got a whole wealth of music behind me now, but it's just sticking to one thing. I've got my ambient piano stuff, I've got my techno-y stuff that I release, and I've got my disco stuff, and then I like to float from one to the other, a lot. But over the last 10 years, I've done the RobJamWeb stuff more than the others. But you have to be in the mood, I've not played I've got a piano around the corner there. It's electric piano. I've not played it in months. Whereas I played this, just noodled about on here.
What is that? It's got a lot of fun notes.
That's a Korg MS-2000.
It is. Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah. But you just have to be in the mood, in the right sort of mood for music, don't you? You've got to be in the mood for it, I believe, anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think, playing the piano is one mood compared to you're probably not going to start your new disco boogie track when you're falling asleep at 1:30 in the morning, after a long day of work. So you got to have that energy. And that's part of what I'm enjoying too about playing with some friends too, is it's tapping into some of the higher energy stuff that I like to do and sillier stuff, I'm not going to make these silly songs by myself. Whereas with your buddies and they laugh at something you say or the way you play the riff, that stuff changes how you play. So I couldn't imagine being somebody that always played that one type of music, that one mood, one style. I think I'd get bored of it after a while.
Yeah, I'm like that. I mean, I'm like that with listening to music. I'll
listening too. I don't listen to just one thing. There's so much out there to take in.
Well, this is it. I mean, do you find that you discover less new music even though now there's more of it?
I guess less stuff that sticks, which I think might be just getting older. But
well, they say, don't they, after the age of 33 you stop listening to new music more.
Yeah, that's
some Oxford study. I don't know if that's true or not, but
I would bet that's true for the general population.
Yeah.
I do listen to a lot of new music, and I purposely try to ingest stuff that maybe I wouldn't put on purposely.
Yeah.
To just learn and take it in, and
I find that
I'm using music a lot of the times for inspiration. I'm trying to hear stuff so that I can make something now. So I have a little bit like a transactionary relationship. Yeah. But the music that hit me when I was 14, 15, 16, nothing ever really hits the same. And I think that's true for everybody.
It's absolutely true. Absolutely true. Yeah. Those records for me from the late 80s, early 90s, there's no comparison, because it's your first, it's like when you connect with something, when you
don't even know who you are yet. And when you find I connected with that, it teaches you something about yourself.
Absolutely.
And you start getting a little rough draft of the outline of who you might be
of
as
what
a
you
person.
Want to become. Yeah, it's true. That is absolutely. But yeah, I mean, I find that I listen to a lot of new dance music. I've got lots of YouTube channels I subscribe to and listen to, and I'll listen to them. There's new records, and I'm like, they've sampled an old record that's been sampled 3 or 4 times already, and they do it in a new sort of way. And there's a lot of good. I'm into a lot of lo-fi house at the moment. There's a lot of good stuff coming out from that, which is good. But but you end up, I end up listening to it sometimes and thinking it's nothing new. There's not a lot new here, but it's done in a new way, but we're still using the same sounds, we're still using the same bass sounds and stuff, which is what I do, with the disco funk stuff. It's got a certain sound to it. But I end up finding, what I do enjoy is I end up finding on artists that I'll listen to, I'll discover by pure chance, and I go, well, they're not doing this. That's very old school house. And then I'll find them on Spotify, and they've got like 10 million followers. I'm like, crikey, they must be doing something right, that's what I like. I like discovering new artists like that who have been around for a few years and I've never heard of them, and they've got a big following, and I enjoy that side of things. There's a guy I discovered today called French 79, and I'd never heard of him before, and he's got millions of followers on Spotify and YouTube.
Yeah, I saved an album of them, or I don't know, I have no idea if it's a group or a person, but I have one in my iTunes library that I like.
The French 79.
Yeah.
I
think it's like a really black cool cover with like kind of like a rainbow letter or something.
Yeah, it's got a rainbow logo, like a multicolored logo, and it's really cool electronic music. And I discovered him literally by pure chance, like this morning, and it was like took me down that rabbit hole, and
well, that's a fun thing too that you can do these days sometimes, and this is the case with that artist. I don't know anything about them, him, her, all of those people, and I like that sometimes when every time I hear music, one of the first questions is, who is this? And my opinion sometimes changes real quick when I hear who it is.
Right.
So it's fun to hear stuff where you just have nothing.
Yeah.
And it just gets to stand up on its own merit.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, that's why I say that I discover new music that is, I tend to, I suppose when I'm like, I don't know, say not stressed out, but when I'm tired, I'm driving in the car, I will listen to stuff that I know.
Yeah.
Like you say, the albums that hit when you're 14, 15, like for me was a lot of electronic music, a lot of hip hop. And the Pet Shop Boys were my band as a teenager growing up, and New Order and that kind of thing. And I tend to listen to those because it's predictable and I don't have to worry about the outcome. Whereas when I'm plottering about, I will try something new and I will click on a video on YouTube that has just been uploaded 2 days ago and check that out. And that's when it leads me to new stuff, But yeah, like you say, you discover new music all the time, and there's so much stuff out there. I mean, how many songs get released a week? Is it 30,000 on average on Spotify or something?
I think it's like closer to like a gazillion.
Yeah, probably right. And then you've got Bandcamp as well. I mean, Bandcamp's great for new music. There's a lot of cool stuff comes out on there. But
it's so much more than you could ever consume, and probably your favorite music you'd ever hear in your whole life will never get to you.
Yeah, this is it. You don't know what you're missing, do you? You don't know what stuff we've missed out on.
Yeah.
I've discovered variety of stuff. I mean, I like a lot of I like some post-rock stuff as well, just to be different sometimes, have something different, like ambient guitar music and that sort of thing. And there's so much, I don't know where to start half the time, listening to new stuff that's totally different from what I produce. I'm quite big on that, But yeah, it's a continuous journey, isn't it, that we're on. And I mean, where's it going to be in, I'm 45 now, nearly 46. Where's it going to be in another 20 years when I'm 65? Are we going to be making music pure on our phones, or we're going to be in the metaverse making music? What's next? Is all this going to be irrelevant? It is in a sense to some producers. Most people just use pure software.
Yeah.
But what's next around the corner is interesting for me.
Who's your favorite AI composer?
This I saw something about that not long ago, about the AI composer, and it's like, what? That's just like, where's the creativity? There's a lot of plugins I do like, things that do things for you.
Yeah.
I can't think of any off the top of my head, but things that make it so super easy to make music.
Yeah, I
which
was
kind of
using
like
Captain plugins recently.
Captain Chords, Captain
Captain,
Beats, that
yeah,
that sort of thing.
and
It's kind of like,
they all connect too. Like you put in your chords, and then the
yeah,
melody plugin knows
yeah,
that those are your chords. They communicate the bass line and then the beat, and
and
it's
next minute
pretty
you've got a track.
awesome.
It is clever stuff, but is it creative for the human element?
Yeah, there's
Mm.
it does leave some questions, it's pretty amazing, and I found like things I wouldn't normally do. I've learned from it.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I don't know how I feel about it yet.
Yeah,
It's kind of like weird. It's a weird feeling. It's
I don't
it's
look at it
incredible.
fully. Yeah,
What's that?
I don't look at it fully. The AI stuff, that produce, where you can produce. I don't look at it fully because
Yeah.
I don't want to get caught up in that. I mean, I'm old school where we make music.
Uh-huh.
Even sampling is an art.
Yeah.
And I don't think we should lose. I think we're going to gradually lose. But then again, having said that, people are still playing classical music the way they did 300 years ago. So
Yeah.
I don't think we'll ever lose that human element until we, you know,
Yeah,
I don't
I've
know.
thought about that a bit, and I can think to like when I was listening to say like Nirvana when I was a
Yeah,
teenager, getting like my flannel shirts and my ripped jeans, and
just being Kurt Cobain.
yeah, I don't. Is an AI gonna do that to you like a
Well, this is it,
song?
isn't it? No,
You
I
know,
mean, but
because
then again,
like I said,
you've got the holograms now with pop stars, aren't you? You've got
yeah, like when I said, who is this when you hear a new song and then it
yeah,
changes how you feel about it. That might be bad, but it's also part of it. There's sort of like a culture and lifestyle that music is presenting as well.
mm,
And I don't see like an AI recreation of, modern pop song
no.
changing
Maybe
people
you,
on that level. I don't know though. Who knows?
yeah, maybe you'll probably get in the metaverse thing, whatever's going on with that. You'll
Yeah,
probably get virtual pop stars in there that,
right. Be some
there'll
like
be something that goes
weird
off
donkey
inside that.
man
Yeah,
with
some
like
weird thing.
purple hair and
Yeah, some weird AI pop
yeah.
star that goes off and you have to pay to watch his shows. And, that's probably what will come of it. Like, you
Hmm.
don't know what the next generation of kids are going to be into. I mean, there was a thing on Fortnite, wasn't there? The video game Fortnite, where you paid, some pop star did a concert within the game,
Hmm.
and kids paid extra money within the game to go and watch the concert within the game. It was really weird, but he
Wow.
was actually performing live in a studio with a green screen and, flash
Really?
technology,
I didn't
and he
hear about that.
performed within the video game
Insane.
at a certain time. Can't remember who it was. It was a rapper or somebody. But
Yeah,
it was
look that up.
bizarre, so people were
Interesting
not.
marketing too.
Yeah. Well, the
For
Fortnite market, I mean, you've got billions of kids, haven't you, that play that? So
oh yeah.
that's probably where it's going to end up, with pop stars. The major record label pop stars will probably be doing concerts in games. And,
Huh. Wow. I wonder if like the regular I've never played Fortnite, but I've seen it a little
no,
bit.
I don't do video games.
Um, but I wonder if like, you know, Rob Jam can like set up somewhere in the
Set up
Fortnite
somewhere
world
in
and start
Fortnite.
DJing, like is it like
Exactly. Well,
that?
Moody Man did it on Grand Theft Auto. He's a DJ from Chicago, Detroit, and he did it recently. Where he went into the video game on Grand Theft Online and
Wow.
he did a DJ
Like
set.
busking almost, right? Like
Yeah, but they paid him a shed load of money, and he went off and did a DJ set within a game. It's just crazy. I think it was during
that's
lockdown, that one.
that's pretty
But
cool.
yeah, it's
Uh,
good. It's good, but is it, Is it progressive? Or is it limiting? Who knows?
yeah, well, um it's new. It doesn't take away from the fact that you can still go to a concert.
Yeah,
And,
that's true.
you can still have
It's an
both.
alternative, isn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know
But it's
because
like
like young kids, especially that have like grown up doing that, like a lot of
they're
their
not going to do it,
friendships
are
are
they?
built in there, where that's where they hang out with their friends is inside the game.
Suppose, yeah. They don't hang
Talking
around in
about each
clubs
other's
and bars.
mothers and shooting in the,
Yeah,
like,
I guess
but
that's
that's
a
like
good
the
way of
hang,
looking at it.
you
Yeah.
know, it's like
So they go
riding
to a virtual
skateboards
concert
around.
together in
Yeah.
different houses. Yeah. Yeah. I suppose so. That's probably what it'll be. And then when they grow up, that'll be normal for them in their 20s. And they'll go, I remember when we hung out on Fortnite when we were 14. It was like, that'll be their impact moment, you know. Suppose. And we'll just be old men who just moan about, you know, analog equipment, you know.
I will tell you, I'm more than ever in the last couple of years feeling my age versus my students, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, because just how the technology has changed and like their world. There used to be a mainstream, you know, a mainstream pop culture that you can always sort of tap into. And even though most of my life I haven't really been that into the mainstream, you know. I told you I listened to Nirvana, so that's pretty mainstream. But that was alternative, right?
Yeah.
But you could always, you know, see what everyone was watching on TV that night. You can watch like the big show of the evening, and you could tune into the radio station to hear what the new hits are. But everything is so fragmented and scattered now that it's much harder to get your finger on what's going on with them.
Absolutely. There's so many subcultures and so many parallel universes now.
If I'm lucky, I'll catch a little TikTok catchphrase that's popular for a week and a half that they're all kind of saying, and by the time I caught on, it's old.
So, yeah. So I know what you mean. It's like there's a whole world of YouTubers, influencers that are massive stars, and if I walked past them in the street, I wouldn't know who they were at all. You know, whereas before, like when we were kids, you know, everybody knew who Axl Rose was, or Kurt Cobain, or Madonna. You know, it was, you know, we were all on the same. Everyone was on the same sort of path, wasn't they? You know, we were given the same records by the same record labels, the same, you know, TV shows. Whereas now it's just too much information, too much availability, and they've got kids that are into this, and you've got kids that are into that, and you know, like you say, it's far more difficult to. So when my students come to me and they say, I want to make a track like this, my clients, so they say, they want to make a track like this guy. And I'm going, all right, okay, let me listen to it. And then I'll go and listen to somebody that they want to sound like. And I've never heard of them, but they're house music, but I've still never heard of them because there's just so many, you know, people out there doing stuff. You know, how many different kind of rock genres are there now? How many different
zero
hip hop, you know, dubstep, sidestep is just countless, isn't it? You know, countless different genres, subgenres. So yeah, it's difficult, but it's good because it keeps you going, it keeps you interested, it keeps you, you know.
That's one of the things I love about teaching too, is it does keep you kind of aware of what's going on, even if it's keeping me aware of how much I don't know what's going on. It does keep you fresh, and you kind of see things, and like you get it. Having that input from students and clients is valuable because it's hard to seek that out on your own all the time.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. You can't be your own
curators. Yeah.
No, it's good. Yeah.
Well, so we should tell people where to go to find out more about your work, right?
Okay.
Waxadisc.com.
Waxadisc.com, and that's where I do my tutorials, and I have a blog on there where I post a hell of a lot of help articles and tutorial videos on how to make music. There's loads of other stuff in there, like not just producing music, but tips on procrastination, which was something we spoke about discipline earlier. I'm good at, you know, telling people how to be. But there's a lot of articles in there. There's loads of free sample packs. There's loads of short courses that I offer. And then I've got my YouTube channel, and I've got, you know, all my own music, RobJamWeb, which is on Spotify, Beatport. It's all available out there. So yeah, that's what I do. I also do ambient music called Calm Drama, which is on another side label that I own. And that's available as well to listen to. So that's more piano ambient based music and film soundtrack stuff. So that's my side project, which I do when I get around to it. The last album I released was 2 years ago on that. So yeah, Waxadisc is my baby, which is what I do. And you know, it's mostly disco, funk, house, techno sometimes, and occasionally the odd. I tend to focus more on tracks, on producing tracks, rather than technical stuff like how to use a compressor limiter or those kind of things. I rather tend to stay away from the technical sort of stuff, really, because I find that you have to, when you're doing a tutorial, you're talking what you're doing, and when you're making a track and you're using EQ or compressors, you do it just second nature, don't you? You don't think about it; you're just doing it. Whereas when you're when doing tutorials, you have to talk everything through, and it's like two things at once. It's like trying to rub your tummy and pat your head, and it's like you've got to kind of do those things. So I tend to make a track and talk my way through making the track for the tutorial, which is what I find I'm best at, and people can relate to that better. So I tend to do more track-based stuff. So this is how you make a boogie track. This is how you make a disco house track. This is how you make a lo-fi house track, and then show the people how to do that. That's what my focus is on mostly. And then I teach personal one-to-one mentoring as well for clients who come along and they want to make certain type of music. I will help them achieve that, and I've got people, record labels, record deals. There's some good reviews on my website, which you can see from the Google reviews, of where I've had people come to me with zero experience, and then after the courses, they've got tracks out on labels. So I've helped people achieve a lot of, ambitions that they've had for many years, So it's all good fun, and I enjoy it very much so. So that's that, really, Brian.
Yeah.
Just keep going on as we do.
Keep going on. That's it. I like that you're leaving some breadcrumbs for people and helping them find their way along too, and giving some inspiration and spreading your knowledge and experience. That's a gift that is clearly helping a lot of people. And
I love it. I do love passing on the knowledge.
Some people listening too.
That's what it's all about, isn't it? Passing it on.
Mm-hmm.
Passing on the knowledge of, a lot of stuff I do is self-taught. It's I love listening to old records and trying to replicate, and after a while you get to understand what a sound is from a certain synth. You can recognize certain keyboard sounds, can't you, from old records, and then you go, oh, that's that bass line, that's this, that's that, and people are like amazed that you can pick out a sound and and find it straight away on a soft synth, on a VST. I love doing that sort of thing. It's like almost like archaeology. It's like, I do love that kind of treasure hunt sort of thing. And then when I get a VST and it's got a certain sound on that it was famous on a record 40 years ago, that gets my blood flowing, so to speak. So yeah, but my favorite, I suppose like my favorite go-to free synth, if anyone out there listening, is the Tyrell. If you want to have you used the Tyrell by Amazonia?
No, I don't know it.
It's the Tyrell VST. It's absolutely brilliant. It's a free one, and it's just this. It's built by UHE in Germany.
Oh yeah, okay.
And it's fantastic for boogie. It's got some great lead lines and funk sounds and stuff on it. So that is one of the best free VSTs for making disco and funk.
Yeah, they make good stuff. They do Zebra, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But the Tyrell is brilliant. It's got some great sounds on techno and disco and house.
Right.
So that's one I would recommend if anyone's keen to have a dip into the disco pool. Use that and and use the Oberheim drums, obviously, and some of the live drum kits that you can get. I like to combine live with digital as well, as much as I can. So yeah, that's about it, really, Brian.
Very good.
Anything else you want to know, or we good?
No, I like that. I think that's a nice place to wrap up.
Okay, cool.
Hey, I really enjoyed talking to you, and
you too. It's been fantastic. It's been great.
Yeah,
it's been good to speak on the either side of the pond and have very similar interests. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Right. Excellent.
So we'll tell people to go to waxadisc.com. We'll put the YouTube, we'll put some of these links we mentioned in the show notes so they can find it.
Okay. Brilliant.
And
that'd be great.
I appreciate you taking the time.
And then when you've uploaded it, I'll post the thing wherever you want it posted, etc.
Excellent.
No problem.
So thank you, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you very much, Brian.